Judy Maggio here with KLRU's Decibel, and I have a special guest with me today. Don Dorsey was part of our oral history project in conjunction with the Ken Burns series on Vietnam. Ours was called Austin Revealed Vietnam Stories, and you so graciously told your story of your experiences in Vietnam. We thank you for that. It's been about a year, and I wanted to bring you back because I got an email from you. Tell me about what you've written here.
Well, this is a story about one of my experiences in Vietnam early on. I was a fairly new guy, and I had quite a few brushes with death, and this was one of them. And I wanted to share it, especially because it's the anniversary of this incident where two of my friends were killed. And I have not forgotten those boys and will not forget them, and I want to share them with you.
So it was 49 years ago.
49 years ago, 31st of August.
Go ahead and read it for us.
Okay. 31 August 1969, Southern I Corps, Republic of Vietnam. It was dark 30 as we stood just inside the perimeter of Hill 37 south of Arizona Territory, adjusting our equipment for a 4-day 4-sniper mission west into Indian Country. Our assignment was to scout the Bo Bins area near the Song Vugia River in search of enemy activity. And as per usual, we'd be on the lookout for targets of opportunity. Eager to learn, I was excited about this mission as I'd been in Vietnam only 2 months, and this was an opportunity for me to recon a new area. I was to be the spotter for team leader Corporal Paul Dukes, a tough, smart-ass 19-year-old kid from Minden, Louisiana. A month earlier, I'd worked in tandem with his team when I was spotting for Corporal Ralph Hooks on another 4-man, 2-team mission during Operation Pipestone Canyon in Dodge City, southeast of Hill 55. Both Dukes and Hooks were short-timers now, and soon I'd be replacing one of them as team leader, welding the bolt-action Remington 700 and running my own sniper and recon missions. But for now, my job was to protect Dukes. Were a mission to become compromised, it's up to the spotter, who's never more than a few feet from his team leader at all times, to lay down a base of suppressive fire with his M14, facilitating the leader's escape. A bolt-action single-shot rifle has long-range capabilities, 3/4 of a mile, but its mounted scope and 5-round internal magazine render it virtually useless in a firefight. With such limited weaponry and with bounties on our heads, the scout sniper team was strictly an offensive combat unit. To be on the defensive was to invite death, so every sniper shooting pause, short for position, required 2 predetermined escape routes. And because we often had no means of communication with other friendlies, there was little possibility that the proverbial cavalry would ever come riding to our rescue. A killer team had to be able to survive on its own. Ideally, we'd make the hit at over 700 meters out of earshot of the target, so that if it was a miss, that first shot became a spotter round for the kill. Regardless, 2 shots were the limit on any one target in the field. After that, we had to quickly vacate the area, hoping that enemy patrols weren't alerted to the extremely loud roar of the Remington's bull barrel. But it wasn't just the enemy that caused us concern. Even American troops and choppers, uncertain as to who we were, would on occasion fire at us as well. We were hunters, and gunning and running was what we did. This early morning, just before we were to move out, Corporal Hooks pulled me aside to inform me that, out of concern for my safety and that of the mission, he was replacing me. Ralph was an easygoing, kind and gentle, and unflappable 20-year-old country boy from Princeton, Kentucky. Raised hunting game in the hills above his hometown, he aptly went by the nickname Hillbilly. An excellent leader, Hooks had taken me under his wing early on to coach me about survival in the Nam. He was going home in less than 30 days and had been retired from the bush, but on this day he selflessly volunteered to relieve me, as he was familiar with the Bo Bins area and also was considerably more versed in combat. He also wanted to run one final killer team with his longtime buddy Dukes. This was to be the very last mission for each of them. It was. Thoroughly pissed at being replaced, my argument was without merit. Of course, Hooks was right. New guys were almost always a liability. Though it was about the mission, I still took it personally. A hot-headed, college-educated, 23-year-old PFC at the time, I was outranked and outflanked by kids. Cussing under my breath, I stood alone on the safe side of the wire, all painted up with no place to go, watching as Dukes and Hooks disappeared into the pre-dawn darkness. That was the last time I saw them. Later that day, I returned from Hill 37 to our Scout Sniper headquarters on Hill 55 to learn that the team had gotten hit and that Dukes and Hooks were dead. Not even a day into the mission, Dukes had gotten a little too careless, and against our training, he chased a wounded enemy soldier right into an ambush. And dutifully shadowing his every step was Hooks, his spotter and my replacement. The other 2 men on the team were forced to escape and evade while the enemy searched the area. Although the survivors made it back to Hill 37, they were never the same. None of us were, as snipers were accustomed to having the upper hand. Death can be an incredibly sobering reality check. A team of grunts was sent out to recover the 2 bodies, and I was told that Dukes was unrecognizable. I suspect that he'd been wounded and probably flipped off the enemy as they approached. Stubborn to a fault and likely defiant to the end, he would have done that. An enemy soldier emptied a full magazine into his face. Hooks was stitched across the chest and most likely died instantly. His mom wrote me about the sad homecoming, the funeral, and how he looked like a prince in his dress blues. I still have that letter. In Vietnam, I lost 3 good sniper buddies and another 2 grunts with whom I'd trained. There were others, but these were close friends, and at least 3 more returned home to commit suicide. Although Memorial Day is the national day set aside to mourn our fallen, I think of my buddies often. Had it not been for Dukes and Hooks deciding to replace me, I'd likely not be here to recall that ill-fated mission. It's since become my duty to protect their memory. It's been 49 years this month, and I still have their backs. I always will. I owe them that. Semper Fi. Sergeant Don Tex Dorsey, 1st Marine Regiment Scout Sniper, Vietnam, 1969-70.
Why do you think you really wanted to write this story almost 50 years later? What does it mean to you?
Well, since I've come to terms with Vietnam, there's a lot of stuff that comes back to me, and I want to remember it. You know, here I am now at this age trying desperately to remember what I tried desperately to forget so long ago. And now it's history, and it's my history. And I don't know that anybody can get anything out of it but me, but I want to share that because these people were worth sharing.
I think you're wrong about that. I think that a lot of people realize that there are a lot of sacrifices made during Vietnam. And I agree with you. I don't think we should only shine the light on what veterans have sacrificed on Memorial Day or Veterans Day, and that's one of the reasons I wanted you to read this for us. You also have a couple of bracelets there. Yeah,
bracelets for Dukes and Hooks. I've been wearing these bracelets for about 35 years. Not these ones. They wear out. I've replaced them and put them back on. And every time someone asks me, you know, what kind of disease I have that I'm wearing black bracelets, I comment that, you know, these are my buddies, and thank you for asking, because they just took another breath. And, you know, their families are probably dead by now. And, you know, they were only 19 and 20 years old, so they never had families of their own. And so these are my brothers, and I'm remembering them. And I don't want to forget it. And I would remember them even if they hadn't replaced me on that team.
When we interviewed you a year ago, one of the things that stuck with me that you said was, I left Vietnam, but it never left me. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, you know, I stuffed it back in the back of my head for a long time, but a lot of times, I mean, I can just walk on a trail in the woods and I'm in Vietnam, even now. You know, I watch where I walk. I don't touch limbs. You know, it's ingrained in me, and now it's kind of comical. But you know, I just come to terms with it. To me, it's kind of amusing, and I don't want to forget that. You know, there's a saying that you've never really lived until you've nearly died, and I think Vietnam's a perfect example of that. You know, because everything is so intense during that period that things make a difference. And so I learned a lot of things in Vietnam. I learned mostly about myself and what I'm capable of. Not a whole lot scares me, because I've been scared by the best. And so,
you know, one final question. Why do you think it's so important that we unpack Vietnam right now, that our country remembers what happened there 50 years ago?
Well, I think that if, you know, we go to war every 20 years, it seems like, and so all you do is cover up the last war before you finish with it, dealing with it. So I think Vietnam veterans need to tell their stories. The stories, it's history. We represent our country. We did the best we could in a war that was not popular. There's got to be something to learn from that. You know, yeah, I know we keep repeating it, what we do, but sooner or later we're going to get the hang of this war stuff. You know, and hopefully that, I know there'll never be wars as long as there's two people who don't agree. But, I mean, there won't be any end to war. But you know, we can try. And, you know, I think everybody that serves this country deserves to be recognized for it.
We're also really glad that your story has a happy ending.
Yeah, I'm not sure what you're referring to.
Well, you recently married, and you seem like you're in a good place.
I am. You know, I fought Vietnam. Listen, you know, my Vietnam experience lasted 11 months and 27 days. Fighting a war is one thing. Fighting the peace never ends. And I will still continue to fight it. But, you know, I've learned to live with it and pick out the good stuff along the way. And I did, after 71 years of dealing with post-war stuff. Well, not 71, I was 71 when I got married, but I got married for the first time. And, you know, that's an interesting experience. You know, it's another trail I haven't been down. And, yeah, things are looking up.
Good.
And I got a new home, a new wife, and, you know, live in a new town.
All right. Don, thanks for sharing your spirits with us and so many people who you've talked to about your war experience, and I think that it makes a bigger difference than you realize.
Well, it's like I said, it's therapy, and if someone can get something out of my therapy, by God, they should do it.
Well, thanks for visiting with us today.
Okay.